When paradigms fail people, the paradigm is never going to tell them, go look at the paradigm, I'm at fault. The paradigm will always basically blame you for fucking up and not making the system work. So, whatever that paradigm structure is. Now, in a society as a whole, in this culture, there is a lot of quote unquote mental illness. And that very phrase, mental illness, is something that I hate because it assumes almost that there is something inherently in the brain that's defective. So, psychiatry comes along and it says if you're depressed, if you're anxious, if you have schizophrenia or whatever, then the problem is with you. The problem is your neurotransmitters. You get some mumbo jumbo that sounds so scientific, even though there's no science for it whatsoever. And next thing you know, you have people going around who are convinced by psychiatrists that they need to take these bullshit medications in order to drug their brain because they are just born somehow defective. And there's nothing that I hate more than hearing someone tell me that they are just born bipolar and this is what they have to do, or they have the disease, generalized anxiety, and all this nonsense. What psychiatry does is it creates a fake science that covers for our culture. When our culture drives people to depression, when our culture drives people to anxiety, when our culture creates an environment so we get schizophrenia or whatever you call bipolar disorder, whatever you want to call these things are just labels or descriptions of behavior. They're not physical diseases. Well, the psychiatry says the problem is with you. Don't look at society. So it's kind of basically society is generated by the greater system in order to protect the system. Because the status quo, our institutions, including the medical institution, is basically a byproduct of this capitalistic structure, which kind of has ideas about human nature and human behavior. And if you believe in that capitalism is somehow the way for people to function, then you don't want to come to how is that going to come back to the conclusion that people are developing anxiety disorders or depression due to the stress of needing to go out and compete every day. That's not going to work. So instead of questioning the system and realizing that this system of capitalism is bad for mental health, it's like the system generates psychiatry. So psychiatry can say, oh no, you don't have to blame the system. You can blame these neurotransmitters. And it's all garbage because there's no evidence whatsoever that mental illness is caused by neurotransmitters that randomly get all dysfunctional. It doesn't make any sense on any level. And the drugs, they don't even know how they work. So it's all garbage. But people buy into it because it kind of fits the reductionistic, so-called scientific way that we're trained to think. We're trained to think that everything can be broken down into little itsy bitsy parts, and you find that one part that doesn't work, and then you go and fix it. And we're trained to think that's how the body works. Oh, if someone has a disease, well, it's because some part is broken, some chemical is broken. We're going to go in with precision and fix it. That really doesn't make sense anywhere, especially doesn't make sense in the brain, but it fits our reductionistic worldview. It fits the capitalistic worldview in that now we don't have to question capitalism. We don't have to question our structures. We don't have to question if telling people that they have to go and earn money every day and struggle in this stupid game. We don't have to question any of that. It's all given, and if you have problems in this system, then it's your fault and you need a drug. So let's just understand that there's no such thing as different fields in a sense. Like you don't have something called economics there and then psychiatry there and health somewhere else. The idea of different fields is just an abstract concept that we use to help our brain organize everything. But ultimately, there's just kind of one system in place. It is just this reality, and what there is there. So psychiatry is a front for capitalism, But if we want a functional economic system, that functional economic system has to take care of objective human needs. And that means creating an environment so that people are not going to develop depression, anxiety, and other disorders due to the stress imposed on them by the system. And there are so many innumerable ways that our system creates stresses that lead to mental illness. It's just the stress of having to earn money, the stress of having to go to shitty jobs and to have to submit yourself to a private dictatorship where one is abused every day, the stress from having to compete through bullshit educational systems in order to get that job. Then there is the stress of inequality, the stress of poverty, and all the structural violence associated, with that. And so all these things are just adding on top of each other. What the stress of being told you need this, you need that shit every day, and being subjected to all this advertising. You creates a system that's like crazy making. It's like designed to drive people nuts. And that's where psychiatry comes in, and that's its job. The real answer to the mental health issue is to change society as a whole. It's not to even necessarily treat people for mental problems. I mean, when I'm working with people with their emotional issues, it becomes very clear to me that I can do what I can do in natural health to help them cope with where they are. And you can get results and you can see people get better. But ultimately, the problem is not that they are defective, it's the system that they are in. And ironically, this capitalistic system that seems to generate something like psychiatry in order to not necessarily, it's not that psychiatry defends capitalism directly, it defends capitalism by getting people to not even question what the source is, but then it generates all this income for business with the bullshit drugs, and you need the psychiatrists, and you get this whole massive field of people paying money to numb their mind. And what psychiatric drugs are, they're just like street drugs. Someone doesn't feel good, so they go out and they get high. Why is it that if someone is depressed, so they go out and they get drunk or they smoke some crack, it's understood that they are just drugging themselves so they don't feel what's going on, and in the long run they're just creating deeper health issues. That's understood. But all of a sudden, when that crack cocaine is replaced by Paxil, they go from drugging themselves to treating a mental illness. What is the difference? You're talking about two neurological poisons that do nothing but impair how the body functions. So I see no philosophical difference. In fact, for some people, the Paxil might be a lot worse than the cocaine. There are some people, they go crazy on these things. Okay, that's enough of my depression because I can't sleep in the middle of the night rant. Okay, bye.